The Spectre of the Virgin Queen. In the twilight shadows of Hampton Court Palace, where the echoes of history linger, a strange presence was said to haunt the halls, none other than the ghost of Queen Elizabeth Bourthos. Her reign had ended centuries ago, but her legacy and spirit remained. The year was 1887, and the moon was full, casting an eerie glow over the palace's grand tapestries. The once regal halls now seemed hollow, like a whisper from the past. Among the royal family and their staff, rumors of Elizabeth's spectral visitations had become whispers on the wind. Some said she appeared to visitors gliding through the corridors, her features hidden beneath a veil of mist. Others claimed to have heard her voice clear and commanding, as if she were still ruling over her empire. It was on one of these misty nights that a young historian, Edward Langley, found himself standing at the grand entrance of Hampton Court. Edward had recently become fascinated with the stories of the monarchs of old, especially Elizabeth I, whom history had enshrined as the Virgin Queen. His curiosity about her reign and her mysterious death had only deepened when he came across an ancient manuscript buried in the archives of the British Library. The manuscript, a forgotten relic of the late 17th century, contained strange references to a ghostly visitation from the Queen herself. The Whispering Manuscript. Edward was not a man easily swayed by superstition, but the words he read haunted him. The manuscript described vivid encounters with the Queen's ghost, not just in the physical form, but as an ethereal, disembodied presence that seemed to bend time itself. Each account spoke of an unfulfilled promise, a mystery surrounding Elizabeth's death, and a soul trapped between worlds. Edward, driven by the allure of uncovering the truth, decided that he must see the palace for himself. Could the Queen's ghost be more than just a tale spun by the fearful minds of the past? As he crossed the threshold of the palace, the chill in the air was immediate, an unnatural cold that seemed to cling to him. His breath fogged in the air, though the weather was unusually warm for late autumn. The flickering light of lanterns cast long shadows against the stone walls as he made his way deeper into the palace. There was something unsettling about the place, as though the stone floors and high ceilings held a secret, one that had not been told for centuries. The lady in white Edward had heard the rumors, the sightings of the Queen's spectral form clad in white, drifting along the royal halls, her face concealed by a veil. He had expected to be met with nothing more than the echoes of an old legend, but what he encountered was far more unsettling. As he passed by the great hall, a faint sound caught his attention, a soft, haunting melody, almost like a lute playing from far away. His heart quickened, and he felt a sudden urge to follow the music. The corridors twisted and turned, each step bringing him deeper into the heart of the palace. The air grew thicker, more oppressive, until it seemed as though time itself had slowed. Finally, he arrived at a small chamber at the end of the corridor, where the music grew louder. There, standing by a large arched window overlooking the palace gardens, was a figure in a long flowing gown. The woman's back was to him, but he could feel the intensity of her presence. The figure was bathed in moonlight, her gown shimmering like silver under the soft glow of the night. "Who are you?" Edward whispered, unable to resist the pull of her aura. The figure turned slowly and revealed her face. It was pale, almost unnaturally so, and her eyes, dark and haunting, seemed to pierce through the very fabric of his soul. She was a vision of regal beauty, yet there was something otherworldly about her. Her features were both familiar and foreign, and for a moment Edward felt as though he were staring into the face of history itself. The woman smiled, a smile that held both warmth and sorrow. "I am Elizabeth," she said, her voice soft but clear like the sound of distant bells. Edward's breath caught in his throat. The name, the presence. It could not be a coincidence. This was no mere apparition. This was Queen Elizabeth I herself. The Queen's confession. As the two stood in silence, the Queen's gaze seemed to soften. Edward found himself drawn into her eyes, unable to look away. "You have come to seek me, haven't you?" she asked, her voice a mixture of melancholy and authority. "The world still remembers me, but there is one thing it does not understand, the true nature of my death." Edward nodded slowly. I've read the stories. They say you died of natural causes, but there are others who claim you were poisoned." Elizabeth finished for him, her eyes darkening with pain. "Yes, that is the rumor, the lie that has plagued my name for centuries. But the truth is far more complex than anyone can imagine." She took a slow step forward, her figure becoming even more translucent, as though the air itself was beginning to pull her into another realm. "I was not killed by poison," she continued, her voice filled with an ancient sorrow. "But I was betrayed by those closest to me. My death was not the end of my story, but the beginning of a curse, the curse that has bound me here, to this palace, to this very moment." Edward's mind raced, unable to fully comprehend what he was hearing. "A curse?" "Yes," she whispered, her gaze falling to the ground. "For I never truly wanted to die. I was not ready. But there were those who feared the power I held, those who wished to see my reign end, and so they sealed my fate. They did not know, however, that in doing so, they unleashed a force beyond their understanding." A queen in limbo. The room grew colder as Elizabeth spoke, the shadows seeming to grow longer with every word. "My soul was never allowed to rest," she continued. "I have wandered these halls for centuries, trapped in a state of limbo. Some nights I can feel the warmth of the sun on my skin, the joy of ruling a kingdom that stretches across the world. Other nights I am only a shadow, a wraith cursed to walk the earth in search of redemption that may never come." Edward could feel the weight of her words pressing down on him, the air growing heavier with each passing moment. He stepped forward, unable to stop himself, and reached out to her. "Is there anything I can do?" he asked, his voice trembling. "Anything to help you find peace?" Elizabeth looked at him, her gaze softening. "You cannot change what has been done, Edward. My fate was sealed long ago. But what you can do is tell the world the truth. You can uncover the lies that have shrouded my death and allow history to see me for what I truly was. Only then will I find peace, when the world no longer believes the false stories told about me. The final goodbye. Edward stood in silence, absorbing the enormity of what she had shared. He was no longer standing in the presence of a mere ghost, but of a queen, a monarch who had been wronged, whose legacy had been twisted by time. Elizabeth smiled faintly, a look of gratitude in her eyes. "You will write the truth, Edward, and you will help free me from this prison of shadows. For only the truth can set a soul like mine free." And with that, as the first light of dawn began to break through the window, Elizabeth's form began to fade. The chill in the air lifted, and the music, once so haunting, fell silent. When Edward blinked, she was gone, leaving behind only the lingering echo of her voice. As he left the palace that morning, Edward Langley carried with him a story more profound than any history book could offer. The ghost of Queen Elizabeth I had spoken the truth, and it was now up to him to make sure the world heard it. Epilogue. Over the years, Edward Langley's writings about the mysterious death of Queen Elizabeth I became a sensation, bringing to light the many inconsistencies in the official history. Though the full truth may never be known, one thing was certain: the Virgin Queen's spirit had found peace at last, no longer bound to the shadows of Hampton Court Palace. And on certain nights, when the moon is full, it is said that her ghost still walks the halls, no longer a wraith, but a queen, at rest at last, at